Have you ever witnessed a rescue gone catastrophically wrong that unleashed forces beyond human control? Where good intentions collided with primal instincts in ways that defied all prediction? Deep in Brazil's Pantanal wetlands, conservationists' mission to free a captive anaconda would trigger a chain of events so extraordinary that when the massive serpent wrapped around a helpless baby elephant, what the herd did next challenged everything experts believed about elephant intelligence, family bonds, and the shocking lengths these giants will go to protect their own.
Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you.
Deep within Brazil's Pantanal wetlands, where the world's largest tropical wetland stretches endlessly toward distant horizons, lies one of South America's most extraordinary ecosystems. This UNESCO World Heritage region encompasses over 150,000 square kilometers of pristine floodplains, where seasonal waters create an ever-changing landscape that supports the planet's most diverse concentration of wildlife. Ancient gallery forests line meandering rivers, while vast grasslands transform into temporary lakes during flood seasons, creating a dynamic environment where land and water boundaries shift with the rhythm of nature's ancient cycles. Crystal-clear channels wind through palm-studded islands where countless species have adapted to the eternal dance between drought and deluge, their lives governed by water levels that can fluctuate by several meters between seasons. The air vibrates with life, thick with humidity and the rich scent of decomposing vegetation that feeds this incredible biodiversity hotspot, where caimans, jaguars, and giant otters share territories with some of the world's most magnificent elephants. But the Pantanal also harbors secrets that challenge our understanding of conservation ethics and the complex relationships between rescue efforts and unintended consequences. This is a place where the impossible becomes reality, where well-intentioned liberation can trigger responses that transcend every scientific prediction about animal behavior. In these mystical wetlands, where different species have learned to coexist through millions of years of evolutionary adaptation, even the most carefully planned conservation efforts can unleash forces that defy human comprehension. What was about to unfold in this pristine wilderness would prove that sometimes acts of animal liberation create circumstances that test the very foundations of family bonds and protective instincts. This was a story that would challenge fundamental assumptions about elephant psychology and revealed that when innocent lives face mortal danger, these gentle giants possess capabilities that go far beyond anything science had ever documented. The extraordinary events that were about to transform both rescuers and rescued would prove that in nature's most desperate moments, elephant families can display responses so shocking, so completely beyond normal behavioral patterns, that they redefine our understanding of what these magnificent creatures will do when protective love collides with ancient predator threats in ways that demand impossible choices. Working in the heart of Brazil's conservation frontlines was Dr. Isabella Costa, a Brazilian herpetologist whose 12-year mission to rescue and rehabilitate captive anacondas had earned her international recognition as one of South America's leading experts in large snake conservation. Standing just over 5.5 feet, with weathered hands bearing countless scars from handling massive constrictors, her dark eyes reflected the accumulated wisdom of someone who understood that these ancient predators were among Earth's most misunderstood and persecuted creatures. Dr. Costa operated from a floating research station that served as both snake rehabilitation center and mobile veterinary clinic, equipped with specialized handling equipment alongside traditional wildlife rescue gear. Her fluent Portuguese and deep knowledge of indigenous conservation practices had allowed her to work with local communities whose traditional ecological knowledge provided insights that conventional science often overlooked.
But it was her personal connection to individual anacondas that made her work both extraordinary and emotionally challenging. Having successfully rehabilitated over 50 large constrictors during her career, Dr. Costa understood that these magnificent serpents possessed complex behavioral patterns and environmental needs that made their reintroduction to wild habitats far more complicated than most people realized. Deep within the Pantanal territory that Dr. Costa regularly monitored lived Esperanza's elephant family, a matriarchal herd of 8 South American elephants led by Esperanza, whose name meant hope in Portuguese. Standing nearly 10 feet tall and weighing over 4 tons, the wise matriarch's imposing frame was balanced by remarkably intelligent eyes that reflected decades of experience navigating the complex seasonal challenges of wetland survival. Esperanza's family included her sister Vitoria, 3 adult daughters named Lua, Sol, and Terra, and 2 precious calves, 18-month-old Karajem and 6-month-old Alegria, whose playful curiosity and rapid development had made them the focus of intense protective behaviors from every adult in the herd. The family had established themselves along prime wetland corridors that provided access to seasonal grazing areas and permanent water sources. This remarkable family dynamic, built on multi-generational wisdom and cooperative child-rearing, would prove crucial to the shocking events about to unfold. Events that would test whether millions of years of evolutionary programming could adapt to threats that no elephant family had ever encountered in their ancestral memory.
That humid Wednesday morning settled peacefully over the Pantanal's vast wetlands, with golden sunlight filtering through morning mist as Dr. Costa conducted her weekly Anaconda reintroduction survey from her floating research platform anchored in a quiet channel surrounded by emergent vegetation. The converted vessel sat perfectly positioned to monitor recently released serpents while maintaining the respectful distance that allowed rehabilitated anacondas to readjust to wild behaviors without human interference. The herpetologist had settled into her routine observation schedule with the methodical precision of someone whose work required documenting every aspect of post-release adaptation in animals whose complex needs were still poorly understood by mainstream conservation science. Her weathered hands moved efficiently between specialized tracking equipment and detailed field notes, while her trained eyes scanned the water channels for signs of the 3 anacondas she had released in this area over the past 6 months. These morning monitoring sessions had become a sacred ritual, moments of profound satisfaction in watching magnificent predators reclaim their rightful place in ecosystems where they had been systematically persecuted and eliminated by human fear and misunderstanding. The sight of successfully rehabilitated anacondas exhibiting natural hunting and territorial behaviors validated years of research into proper care protocols for captive large constrictors. 2 kilometers through the winding channels, Esperanza's elephant family had begun their morning foraging routine with the unhurried rhythm that characterized their peaceful existence in this protected wetland territory. The matriarch positioned herself strategically where she could monitor both her family's safety and the surrounding waterways for potential threats, while the adult females methodically processed aquatic vegetation and young palm shoots. Little Karajem and Alegria had settled into their preferred morning activity of water play, splashing joyfully in the shallow channels, while their mothers maintained watchful supervision from positions that provided clear escape routes to deeper water or higher ground. Their playful trumpeting and mock charging created a soundscape of pure familial contentment that embodied everything beautiful about elephant social bonds in their natural habitat. The soundscape was quintessentially Pantanal, the melodic calls of bare-throated bellbirds echoing across the water, the distant splashing of giant otters at fishing grounds, and the gentle lapping of water against vegetation as countless creatures went about their morning routines in perfect harmony with their ancient wetland environment.
Dr. Costa's peaceful morning survey was suddenly disrupted by her tracking equipment detecting movement patterns that made her conservation instincts flare with immediate concern. One of her recently released anacondas was exhibiting hunting behavior far more aggressive than anything she had observed during the rehabilitation process.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
The telemetry data showed the massive serpent moving with purpose toward an area where large mammals frequently came to drink, suggesting it was actively stalking prey rather than following normal post-release exploration patterns. The tracking signals indicated that Cascabel, a 22-foot female anaconda she had released just 3 weeks earlier, was approaching the exact location where Esperanza's elephant family had established their morning routine. This convergence of recently liberated predator and vulnerable elephant calves represented every wildlife rehabilitator's worst nightmare, a situation where successful conservation efforts could create unintended conflicts with catastrophic consequences. Following the telemetry data with growing alarm, Dr. Costa began navigating her research vessel through the winding channels toward what was clearly developing into a crisis that challenged every assumption about anaconda reintroduction protocols. Her 12 years of experience had taught her that newly released constrictors typically avoided large mammals during their initial adjustment period, making Cascavel's aggressive hunting behavior completely anomalous. As she approached the area where the signals converged, disturbing evidence began filtering through the humid air that confirmed her worst fears. The distinctive splashing and movement patterns of a large constrictor in active hunting mode, combined with increasingly agitated elephant vocalizations that spoke of a family group recognizing mortal danger to their most vulnerable members. Through gaps in the emergent vegetation, she began to catch glimpses of the shallow channel ahead where Esperanza's family conducted their morning activities. The elephant alarm calls were definitely coming from that direction, mixed now with sounds that suggested a prolonged confrontation between desperate parents and an aquatic predator whose size and hunting capabilities represented threats that no elephant family had evolutionary programming to address effectively. Dr. Costa found herself facing a conservation crisis that challenged every principle of wildlife rehabilitation ethics. Her successful release of Cascavel was directly threatening the lives of endangered elephant calves, forcing her to choose between allowing natural predator-prey dynamics to proceed or intervening in ways that could undermine years of anaconda conservation work. The increasingly desperate nature of the elephant calls indicated that whatever was happening had reached a critical phase where immediate intervention might mean the difference between successful coexistence and tragic conflict between species that rarely encountered each other in natural settings.
As Dr. Costa navigated through the final screen of aquatic vegetation, the scene that greeted her was every wildlife rehabilitator's worst nightmare brought to devastating reality. There, partially submerged in the shallow channel where the elephant family conducted their morning routine, was Cascavel, the massive anaconda she had spent months rehabilitating, now wrapped around 6-month-old Alegria, in a death grip that showcased exactly why these serpents were among the world's most efficient aquatic predators. The 22-foot anaconda had positioned herself with tactical perfection in the murky water where elephants came to drink, using her mottled green and brown coloration as perfect camouflage until the curious calf had waded too close to her concealed position. Alegria's small trunk remained above water, releasing weak distress calls that spoke of terror and confusion as Cascavel's muscular coils tightened incrementally around her tiny body with the methodical patience that made anacondas among nature's most relentless killers. What made the scene even more devastating was Alegria's obvious helplessness against a predator whose hunting strategies had evolved specifically to overcome prey many times larger than the elephant calf. The anaconda's coils were positioned with surgical precision around the calf's rib cage, applying steady pressure that would gradually restrict breathing until unconsciousness preceded the slow process of aquatic drowning.
Esperanza and her family circled the attack site in complete maternal anguish, their massive frames creating waves that disturbed the water but couldn't effectively challenge an aquatic predator whose home territory gave her insurmountable tactical advantages. Their intelligence allowed them to understand exactly what was happening, but their terrestrial adaptations provided no framework for confronting a 22-foot constrictor whose strength and aquatic mobility made direct intervention potentially suicidal. The anaconda moved with the patience of a predator that understood water was her greatest ally. Her muscular body, capable of exerting pressure exceeding 90 pounds per square inch, maintained steady constriction while her serpentine flexibility allowed her to adjust positioning in response to the elephant family's desperate attempts to approach their trapped offspring. Most chilling was the calculated nature of the attack. This wasn't random predation. This was systematic exploitation of elephant drinking behavior by a predator whose rehabilitation had apparently enhanced rather than diminished her hunting capabilities, creating exactly the kind of conservation conflict that Dr. Costa had hoped her careful release protocols would prevent. Watching from her research vessel, Dr. Costa found herself confronting the most devastating moral crisis of her conservation career, an impossible situation that challenged every principle of wildlife rehabilitation and species preservation she had dedicated her life to defending. The sight of Alegria's terror and Esperanza's desperate maternal anguish triggered responses that transcended professional protocols and reached directly into the core of her humanity as both scientist and protector of vulnerable wildlife. The elephant family's tactical assessment of the situation revealed their complete helplessness against an aquatic predator whose hunting strategies exploited every weakness in their terrestrial adaptations. Esperanza's attempts to wade deeper into the channel were frustrated by the murky water that concealed Cascavel's exact positioning, while the risk of accidentally harming Alegria during any rescue attempt made direct intervention potentially catastrophic for the very calf they were trying to save. Dr. Costa's veterinary training told her that Alegria was already showing signs of respiratory distress that indicated very little time remained before the anaconda's constriction caused irreversible damage to the calf's developing cardiovascular system. The steady pressure being applied by Cascavel's muscular coils was designed to induce unconsciousness within minutes, followed by drowning in the shallow water that gave the serpent her tactical advantage. Yet something deeper than professional obligations was driving Dr. Costa's response. The knowledge that her successful rehabilitation work had directly created this crisis was triggering guilt and protective responses that had nothing to do with conservation ethics and everything to do with personal responsibility for unintended consequences that were claiming innocent lives. The most devastating aspect of the situation was the complete inadequacy of her equipment for aquatic predator intervention. Her research vessel contained tracking devices, documentation equipment, and basic medical supplies, but nothing designed for confronting 22-foot constrictors in their optimal hunting environment. Her communication equipment might summon backup, but help would arrive hours too late to prevent the tragedy unfolding before her eyes. Dr. Costa found herself crossing a psychological boundary that separated professional wildlife observation from personal moral intervention. The sight of systematic predation enabled by her own conservation work was triggering responses she couldn't ignore, even if action meant undermining everything she had built in 12 years of anaconda rehabilitation efforts. Dr. Costa transformed from passive observer to active catalyst when she made a desperate decision that abandoned every protocol in wildlife rehabilitation ethics. She began using her research vessel's engine and specialized equipment to create disturbances in the water that might force Cascavel to release her grip on Alegria without causing additional harm to the trapped calf. Her choice was calculated but desperate. If her conservation work had created this crisis, she bore responsibility for resolving it, regardless of professional consequences. Working with practiced efficiency, born of countless wildlife emergencies, Dr. Costa activated her emergency beacon and began transmitting distress signals to both wildlife authorities and local indigenous communities whose traditional knowledge of anaconda behavior might provide crucial insights for managing this unprecedented situation. Her satellite communication equipment sent coordinates to rescue teams, but the immediate crisis required action that couldn't wait for backup assistance. The breakthrough moment came when Dr. Costa began using her vessel's sonar equipment to create underwater vibrations that disturbed Cascavel's sensory perception without directly threatening the anaconda or the trapped calf. Her years of studying serpent behavior had taught her that anacondas relied heavily on vibrational cues for hunting and defensive responses, creating possibilities for nonviolent intervention that might exploit their natural behavioral patterns. But what happened next transcended every assumption about wildlife crisis management and interspecies cooperation. As Dr. Costa worked to distract the anaconda through technological intervention, Esperanza began demonstrating intelligence and tactical thinking that challenged fundamental assumptions about elephant problem-solving capabilities under extreme stress. The matriarch seemed to understand that Dr. Costa's actions were directed toward helping Alegria rather than threatening the elephant family, and she began coordinating her own rescue efforts to complement the human intervention. Esperanza's movements showed remarkable strategic thinking as she positioned herself to take advantage of any opportunity that Dr. Costa's distraction efforts might create. Working with split-second timing that seemed impossible between species that had never coordinated before, the unlikely rescue team of desperate mother and determined scientist began creating pressure that forced Cascavel to divide her attention between maintaining her grip on Alegria and responding to multiple disturbances that challenged her tactical control of the aquatic hunting environment. The success of their unprecedented cooperation would depend on perfect execution of intervention strategies that challenged every known principle of wildlife behavior and conservation ethics. The coordinated rescue effort that unfolded challenged every principle of wildlife behavior Dr. Costa had studied throughout her career. Working in unprecedented harmony with Esperanza, she used her vessel's sonar equipment to create targeted underwater disturbances while the elephant matriarch applied strategic pressure from multiple angles, forcing Cascavel to divide her attention between maintaining her death grip and defending against threats approaching from directions that challenged her tactical advantages. The breakthrough came when Dr. Costa's technological intervention found the precise frequency that triggered Cascavel's defensive reflexes without causing additional trauma to Alegria. In that critical moment, Esperanza demonstrated intelligence that left the herpetologists speechless. The massive elephant coordinated her movements perfectly with the sonar pulses, creating a synchronized assault on the anaconda's sensory systems that maximized their combined effectiveness. Working with split-second timing that seemed impossible between species that had never practiced such cooperation, the unlikely rescue team began systematically forcing Cascavel to loosen her coils. Each coordinated effort created small opportunities for Alegria to draw deeper breaths, buying precious time while they worked to exploit the anaconda's vulnerability to sensory overload in the shallow water environment. Dr. Costa's emergency communications had finally reached local wildlife authorities, and the distant sound of approaching boats indicated that professional rescue was en route with specialized equipment for managing large constrictor emergencies. But the immediate crisis required continued coordination between human technology and elephant intelligence that transcended every known boundary of interspecies cooperation. The critical moment arrived when Cascavel, overwhelmed by attacks on her sensory systems from multiple directions and unable to maintain her tactical superiority in the increasingly disturbed water, began releasing her coils to prepare for defensive retreat toward deeper channels. Esperanza immediately seized this opportunity, moving with explosive speed to position herself between the anaconda and Alegria. As the calf finally broke free from Cascavel's deadly embrace, weak but breathing and apparently uninjured, the immediate danger seemed to have passed. Alegria stumbled toward her mother's protective bulk, while Dr. Costa backed her vessel away to give the family space for their reunion. But what happened next would reveal that their intervention had triggered something in the elephant herd that went far beyond simple rescue, something that would challenge every assumption about elephant collective behavior and family loyalty.
What unfolded next would be remembered as one of the most extraordinary displays of elephant collective intelligence and protective instinct ever documented. As Alegria reached safety, the entire herd's response transcended every known pattern of elephant family behavior, revealing capabilities that challenged fundamental assumptions about these magnificent creatures' cognitive and emotional complexity. Instead of simply protecting their rescued calf and retreating to safety, Esperanza's family demonstrated something unprecedented. They began systematically surrounding Cascavel in a coordinated formation that prevented the anaconda from escaping to deeper water. The 8 elephants moved with tactical precision that suggested collective decision-making and strategic planning beyond anything previously observed in wild elephant behavior. But what happened next was truly shocking. Rather than attacking the anaconda or driving her away, the elephant family began something that defied every scientific understanding of predator-prey relationships. Esperanza approached Cascavel with deliberate caution and began using her trunk to gently guide the confused serpent toward deeper water channels where she could retreat safely without posing further threat to the calf. The herd's coordinated behavior revealed emotional intelligence that left Dr. Costa speechless with amazement. They seemed to understand that Cascavel was following natural hunting instincts rather than acting with malicious intent, and their response demonstrated remarkable restraint and problem-solving ability that prioritized long-term coexistence over immediate revenge. Most shocking of all was young Karajim's reaction to the entire crisis. The 18-month-old calf, witnessing his sister's rescue and the herd's compassionate response to their would-be predator, approached the retreating anaconda with curious fearlessness rather than terror. His innocent gesture of extending his tiny trunk toward Cascavel created a moment of interspecies understanding that challenged every assumption about natural enemies and learned fear responses. As Cascavel disappeared into the deeper channels, guided to safety by the very family she had threatened, the elephant herd demonstrated that their intelligence encompassed not just protection and rescue, but mercy and wisdom that transcended the simple survival instincts that governed most animal behavior. Their response proved that elephant families possessed moral complexity that approached human ethical reasoning, revealing depths of consciousness that science was only beginning to comprehend.
In the aftermath of the extraordinary rescue, Dr. Costa's documentation of the elephant herd's response revolutionized scientific understanding of animal intelligence, moral reasoning, and interspecies conflict resolution. The family's demonstration of mercy toward Cascavel challenged fundamental assumptions about predator-prey relationships and proved that elephant consciousness encompassed ethical complexity previously thought unique to humans. The incident sparked international research into elephant cognitive abilities and emotional intelligence, with Esperanza's family becoming the subject of intensive behavioral studies that revealed unprecedented levels of problem-solving, empathy, and moral decision-making. Their response to the anaconda crisis became groundbreaking evidence that elephants possessed capabilities for forgiveness and wisdom that transcended simple survival instincts. Most remarkably, the relationship between the elephant family and their wetland environment evolved following the incident. Esperanza established new protocols for calf protection around water sources, while simultaneously creating safe corridors for aquatic predators like Cascavel to access their hunting territories without endangering elephant offspring. This coexistence strategy demonstrated adaptive intelligence that balanced family safety with ecological harmony. Dr. Costa modified her Anaconda rehabilitation protocols based on lessons learned from the crisis, developing new assessment methods for evaluating predator-prey dynamics before releases in areas with vulnerable wildlife populations. Her work became a model for conservation efforts that prioritized both species preservation and ecosystem balance. Today, Alegria thrives as a healthy young elephant, while Cascavel continues her role as apex predator in deeper water channels, their near-tragic encounter having ultimately strengthened the Pantanal's ecological balance through increased understanding between species. The elephant family's shocking response, choosing mercy over vengeance, wisdom over instinct, continues to inspire conservation efforts worldwide. Esperanza's legacy proves that intelligence combined with compassion can resolve even the most impossible conflicts, demonstrating that nature's greatest teachers are often the creatures we think we understand least. In Brazil's vast wetlands, where an elephant family shocked the world with their capacity for forgiveness, one crisis revealed depths of animal consciousness that forever changed our understanding of what it means to be truly intelligent, truly compassionate, and truly wise in the face of life's most challenging moral dilemmas.
Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.